Everybody.
Good afternoon. Well, good morning. Yeah,
Yeah, still for a little while. How's
Just
everyone
for-
doing?
not too bad. How you doing today?
Good, good. Just waiting for a few more committee members to show up, then we'll get this meeting started here.
Yeah, I was returning your call. So as far as what you guys do. Okay. So cost situation cards to reach out to the artists, like so that. So he has ample time to documentation. As under the Arts Rights Act. Protects artists situations. So
It looks like we have a quorum at this point, but the chair isn't here. Alex, would you mind chairing at least until Doug arrives if he can make it today? Okay, with that being established, I'll just go through the rules and procedures for the meeting. Then you can call the meeting to order, and I'll do roll call. So this is the Ohio City Design Review Committee for May 18th, 2023. Meeting shall be conducted according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Recusal due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the start of any presentation. The committee member will then leave the meeting or be put in the waiting room for the duration of the case discussion. No presentation submissions will be accepted after the deadline. The chair will call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call of the committee. The administrator will introduce the first project and provide some background information if applicable. The meeting will then be turned over to the applicant to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the committee. Once the presentation is concluded, the administrator will read any received comments. The committee will then begin deliberations of project review. Please use the raised hand feature. After deliberations and review concludes, the committee will render its recommendation and vote. After the vote, the applicants may leave the meeting and the administrator will introduce the next project. All projects will follow the same format until all projects are heard by the committee. Once all projects are heard, the chair will call for any committee/administrator reports. After the reports have been heard, the chair will adjourn the meeting. Process for community comments. Any and all community members may provide their written comments, thoughts, or questions regarding the projects presented to the committee for review and approval. Community members may also telephone their comments or questions to the committee administrator. All comments, thoughts, or questions must be submitted to the committee administrator, which is me, no later than 48 hours before the start of the meeting. They can be emailed, left by voicemail, or dropped off or mailed to our office. Public comment or submissions made after the deadline will not be heard by the committee. Public comment will be collected by Landmark staff and sent to the committee members for review prior to the scheduled meeting. Staff will summarize the received comments. The applicant of the project is under no obligation to answer any community questions. Community members are invited to attend the design review committee meetings, but there will be no open public comment period. As a reminder, all projects follow the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. All projects are being considered for the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. All projects are considered on a case-by-case basis. The Ohio City Design Review Committee is advisory to the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. Recommendations by this committee are not final actions. Depending on the scope of the project, submissions may be approved administratively or will need to be reviewed by the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. Projects will be scheduled at the next available commission meeting after an action has taken. So with that being done, Alex, if you want to call the order, I can do roll call.
We'll now call the May 18th, 2023 Ohio City Design Review Committee meeting session. Call the roll.
All right, Mr. Frondorf,
Here.
Ms. Land, Mr. Lozier,
Here.
Ms. Marinucci,
Here.
Mr. Sambury,
Here.
Mr. Talley, and Mr. Wall. All right, Mr. Chair, we have quorum. So we'll move on to our first agenda item, which is case 23-015/OC23-07, 3901 John Avenue. It was tabled April 4th, 2023. It's for garage additions. So I think first we need to untable, and then we have Ms. Marinucci here to give the presentation.
We have a motion on table.
I'll second. Or, oh yeah, I have a motion on table.
We have a second.
I'll second.
I'll do the roll call. Mr. Frondorf,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier.
Yes.
I'm assuming Ms. Marinucci is abstaining, and Mr. Sambury.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Chair, the item is untabled. So Ms. Marinucci, if you want to go ahead through your presentation, just let me know when you want me to click through things. And again, we've seen this in concept and this final approval. So I think there were just a couple things to come back for.
Yeah, I think everyone has seen this at least once, correct, of my colleagues. So I think we can just go straight to the proposed work, Dan. I think it's substantially similar except for the modification. Okay, here we go. The changes here from when we tabled it last month are that we added windows to that west elevation. That was a suggestion. I think, Chris, you had made that suggestion to help break up the wall of that facade, as well as adding the shed roof. We added a shed roof kind of awning at the garage, above the garage door, which is at the pedestrian, like a little bit, bring down the scale to the pedestrian level more and break up the boxy feeling of the structure. And then the third change is that we pulled back the pop-up kind of off of the south elevation so that it was providing a little bit more breathing room, and again trying to alleviate that massing on the alley face, which you can also see illustrated through that west elevation. It's pulled back about, I think, 4 feet. You can go to the plans, Dan, I think. Yeah, so this is looking at the materiality a bit more closely. Again, the whole color scheme had, the broader color scheme of the house had been approved, a couple of years ago when we did the original renovation addition plans. So this continuing the same color scheme. You can see in proposing a wood bracket that's painted to match the Mindful Gray, which is the trim accent color. On the front of the house, it's also appearing on that column feature above on the third level. But yeah, I think that's inclusive of hopefully the comments that we received last time. in our response too. So any other
If
comments? or
that's, yeah, I
questions?
guess if that's the end of the presentation, we didn't receive any public comment on this, so I guess we'll open it up to the committee members if they have thoughts, comments. I think this does, yeah, sort of respond to all the comments received last time we saw it.
I don't think I need to ask, but I'll ask anyways. The muttons are external.
Yes.
My only comment on that elevation is, and I don't know what's happening on the interior, if there's a way to maybe get a little more separation of those 3 windows, great, but if not, that's not a sticky point for me.
They want it designed as like a dining nook, kind of like functioning in that capacity with built-ins. That's helpful.
I'll go next. I don't mind the 3 windows gang together. I think it's I don't have a problem with that. I also didn't necessarily mind sort of the boxy nature of this form, but I do appreciate the shed roof that does bring down the scale with the brackets. That just helps to make it sort of a much more pedestrian friendly sort of piece to the overall design. I appreciate that you stepped back the upper form on this elevation. Question that I have is if you go to the north elevation, is there at all the opportunity to step back, that little bit, I believe is probably over the stair, just to provide a little bit more relief of that volume from sort of at least the 3 perimeter walls? I don't know if that's a possibility, if there's a headroom clearance challenge there.
I think it could a few feet, just like it did on the front side. The reason I didn't on that side is because I feel like it cuts into the functionality of the roof deck. Like, Dan, if you go to the plan view, which I know we didn't look at, okay, so very specifically here, but you can see it kind of creates like a little bit of a relief, like in the roof plan deck. So on the front end, the alley side, we're actually going to use that to put the air conditioning unit for this portion of the house. So it's not quite just like a catwalk. I'm not opposed though. I mean, it's actually like a bit less of a alley feeling on the other side. If that's something that you feel like would be a good recommendation moving forward, I can bring that back to my clients. I don't think that would be something they'd oppose.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from my perspective, I think it helps for that upper portion to read as a completely separate object within that, within the full context of the garage. Yeah, I would be interested to hear what my colleagues say, but I think that might be something that would help to make that pop-up feel more of its own element, separate from the rest of the form.
Okay.
I think that's my only comment there. I think everything else looks good.
Sorry, so
Thank you.
email introduce.
I think that leaves me. I like the small shed roof over the garage door. I think that really makes this work a lot better. The boxiness is still off for me, and I don't know how I would solve this. So I'm kind of torn on how to guide you on this with my comments. I don't know if maybe a different material on the parapet would make it different or feel, I don't know. I don't know how I would solve this. So it's still off to me. I don't know that it's so much so that I wouldn't approve this, but something's still off and just not quite right for me. And I'm really struggling to put my finger on it. And it's just with the roof line. I think everything else is fine. I like the windows look okay to me. Like I said, I like the shed roof. But there's just something on the roof line that just doesn't feel right to me. And I don't know how to solve that. I know it's not helping, but yeah.
I appreciate it. Clear, you guys have
This-
seen me many times with this one, so you know what, I'm in that.
So
I mean,
a
I think
well-reviewed garage.
Yeah, it's very well. No, I know, I appreciate it. Of course, you know, I'm balancing what my clients want for their property and trying to you know, make my best effort to make it appropriate and respond to the comments. And I feel like, yeah, I appreciate your comments. I understand. I think we've had a lot of suggestions from this board, which I've brought every single one of them back to my clients. And this is sort of the result of things that were important to them staying. Like we had gone back through and looked at that carriage house on Clinton that has the roof with the, you know, which I felt was really compelling personally, but they really want the roof to be, the deck space to be open to the air and not, you know, which like I can't, they want the sky, which I can't deny them. So, and same with keeping the parapet solid. They wanted privacy from the alley, and I, you know, I live on this alley too, so I know what, you know, I appreciate that as well. I think I think your suggestion, you know, asked if we wanted to bump that other side of the pop-up in more, might be an agreeable, kind of easy change at this point. But I feel like the rest is pretty much what is important to my clients to stay as is. So
Yeah, Mike, is your comment specifically about the pitched roof at sort of the upper pop-up?
No, it would be what would be the parapet on the,
Got it.
the roof line. I'm okay with the doghouse on top. It's really just having a flat roof line on top of. It just makes it a box. I don't know how to divide that, or how you would go about dividing that a little bit and softening that hard edge.
I did try to put the shed at first, like trying to almost like clip that parapet with the shed.
Yep.
It looked so wonky though. It looked totally out of proportion. It didn't achieve it. And so I felt that the softening at the pedestrian scale was more balanced overall and also would be more impactful. So when you're actually in the alley, that's where you're going to be feeling the space, feeling that,
That is
you know,
the
scale.
I mean, I think there's precedent for sort of the flat roofed sort of module, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Approach. I mean, if you look at certain properties around the neighborhood where there's, you know, the front portion of a house might have, again, a more typical sort of gabled roofs and things like that, and then a back portion with a terrace or otherwise is sort of a flat roof. Mia, you know, I'm thinking about your property on Clinton. I think there's a couple of other properties on Clinton that have a similar sort of more traditional looking sort of main house with a portion on the back that's more flat. So I mean, I don't necessarily have. I get where you're coming from, Mike, but I guess I don't. I see precedent other places within the neighborhood, and also I think if this was on, you know, the front half of the lot, I think I would maybe have more of a concern about it. But seeing as it's on the alley, I'm a little bit less I'm a little bit less hesitant there.
Right, and I agree, and I think that's why ultimately I would approve this. There's just something off about it to me.
That being said, does anyone want to make a motion? It looks like Mr. Talley has joined us too, so I don't know if haven't heard comments from him on this one. But
Oh, yes. I was just thinking to myself, I might along the railing increase the depth of the coping or something. Maybe in a couple extra inches along the roof, but I actually don't have a problem with it.
I mean, I can make a motion to approve with the consideration for pulling back the north side of the doghouse a couple of feet to match the south side.
I'll second.
all right, any further discussion? Hearing none, we can move forward with a vote. Mr. Frandorf,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry?
Yeah.
Mr. Sambry?
Yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Talley?
Yes.
All right, the approval passes unanimously. Approved with condition to pull the northern edge of the doghouse back so it's similar to the south, but no requirements. All right,
Thank you.
we'll move on to case 23-22 at 2900 Detroit Avenue for third floor window replacements. We have Jason Duvall here, and I'm not sure if the property owner Fred Bedwell is here as well, but Jason, if you want to go ahead through your presentation, let me know when you want me to switch slides. It's all yours.
Quickly, Dan, I need to recuse myself
Okay.
from this one. Do you need me to
Gotcha.
move to leave or just mute
Yeah,
myself?
let me see if I can put you in the waiting room to make it official.
Okay.
Not seeing that button right now, but let me
Just mute if that's
move to lobby. Yeah, I'm gonna move you to the lobby. Okay,
all right.
I'll bring you back, I promise.
Thanks.
Can everybody hear me? This is Jason.
Yep.
Good, good. So Fred's not going to be able to make it today. So he wanted me to do it for him. He's actually traveling today, I guess. So I guess let me jump into it here. So he's proposing replacing his windows. He actually lives in the third floor there on the entire floor, but he's only looking to replace the windows on the west elevation. You flip to the first slide, I think, of the presentation. Yeah, so in the big blue circle there, those are the windows he's proposing to be replaced. Essentially, it's all the same size window except for there's one little one on the far right there. And you flip the next slide over. He's actually looking to replace the existing sash windows on the third floor west elevation. The new window design without mullions will improve energy efficiency and enhance the lake views. He's saying there's a minimal use to the appearance in the backside of the building, consistent with the window replacements already installed on the north side in 2017. So if you flip back to the first slide, if you would. So immediately to the left, those windows right there are the ones that were done in 2017. And we actually provided those windows, and the windows proposed would be identical to those types. There was a contractor involved in that renovation, so I'm not sure what was done at that point with the window approval, but we do have records where those windows were supplied to the contractor. So if you flip next to the next slide here and then on to the next. So these are our shop drawings. It's a little bit small, just showing what the window configurations would look like. These would be identical to the windows that were done in 2017, which is our Architect Series line, consistent with the most historically accurate window we have. Basically, there's a couple configurations there, and one type with an awning below it, and then one type where it's just a big fixed window that's just solely done to get some air for them, so some ventilation. The different types there, he does have a gray low E glass on most of the windows, and then like 4 of the windows towards the north elevation of the building would be just regular low E glass, and that's actually kind of a kitchen area for him. So if you go on to the next slide. So this is the intersection of West 29th and Detroit looking north. The windows are actually not in anything, those are remaining. So we're not actually doing anything on that elevation. So flip to the next slide. So this is the Detroit Avenue looking west. Again, none of those windows are actually in the proposed renovations. So to the next slide. So here is Detroit Avenue looking east. And there you actually get catch a view of the windows there on the 3rd floor that we're proposing to be done. And the next slide. And this is actually on the Shoreway looking east. So when you're traveling down the highway, you catch this along with the big billboard, it looks like. So there again, that's where they would be, I guess, viewed probably the most. And then the final slide, I believe it is just kind of a close-up of the windows that were done in 2017. Again, this proposed windows would be identical to that type of window that's that was done during that renovation. So this is really all I have. If you guys have any questions, if I missed anything here.
Yeah, I guess we'll open it up to the committee for questions, comments. I don't know if any of you on the committee recall reviewing these window changes on the north elevation, the 3rd floor there. In a brief search, I didn't find anything in our records that shows what discussion was had, but I know some of you have been on the committee for a bit and may recall that if it came before us, but I'll open it up to the committee.
And I think looking at who's on the call, I think I've been on the committee the longest. I don't remember what year I came on exactly, but I have no recollection of those windows coming before us. Doesn't mean that they didn't. I just don't have any recollection of it. I appreciate the desire to get rid of the muttons, but I think that of a building of this age, style, I think the muttons are an integral part of the historic preservation of it. The single pane of glass is a bit too much of a modern touch for this building, considering that those 6 windows right there on the screen are the only ones on the building without muttons. I'd like to see those muttons preserved.
Yeah, I think I would second Alex's comment there. I with including the Muntins. The windows that are on the opposite side, the long elevation that you're not proposing to replace, right? When were those replaced in 2017 as well, or are those intended at some point in the future to be replaced? Do you know?
So those were not done in 2017. I believe those are original windows, and there may be some type of storm on the outside.
Okay.
Which is kind of what's causing I guess, the look of no muttons. So those were, and I don't believe Fred is anticipating to change those.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's more of a reason to include the Muntins on the proposed window replacements.
I'm just gonna third that. It seems like those windows were probably, I don't know who was on the committee previously or who okayed that, or if it was intentional like that. It just doesn't make sense in the context with everything else. Yeah, I mean, to not have them at all. Yeah, I agree with my previous statements.
And then I'm gonna,
I do. Go ahead,
Go
Mike.
ahead.
Sorry. I was just gonna. Oh, you go ahead. I'm gonna mute.
I was gonna say the same thing everybody else has. The Muttons are important to the style of this building. And I'm going to go a step further and say that I don't believe the 2/3, 1/3 proportion would be appropriate either. I would rather see a 50-50 split on the window. I don't think it has to be a double hung. If you want to do a hopper on the lower side and a fixed on the upper, I'm okay with the operation of the window, but the proportions I think are off, and I'd prefer to see a 50-50. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mike. I would also second that too. I think the proportion, the 50-50 makes fits. I agree with that assertion. One question I have, and I don't know if Dan, you would be aware of this or not, but maybe Nate does. I recall within the past couple of months that the second floor owner or tenant came to the board for a window replacement. Do you recall what our recommendation was then? I believe we probably tabled it, but I can't recall what action we took.
Yeah, I believe it was tabled, sent back so that the window company could discuss with the owner the comments of the commission or the committee and sort of it was a different proposal. They were proposing this type of window. I think that was for, I'd have to pull it up, but I think it was for the first floor and they wanted to enlarge the front windows, or am I thinking of another proposal?
I
I've seen
think
a
that
lot
might
of
have been a
proposals
different,
for this building over the years, so it would be nice if there was a kind of a comprehensive plan. If the windows are getting old enough that they warrant replacement, because I think most of them are original with a storm over them. It would be nice if there was a comprehensive plan that would sort of pick a window, and that when the different owners in the building were ready to or felt that they needed to change their windows, there would be already an approved window ready. But with different owners, it's tough can't force them to all get on the same page necessarily.
It seems like there's a desire, at least.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't have any other comments or questions, but thanks, Dan, for the additional context.
Jason, I think you can read the room as well as I can. My recommendation would be to table this and to come back with a new proposal addressing these comments, but we have to have your consent to table it.
Yeah, I just had I guess a couple of questions. You were saying, you guys sounds like at least one of you were good with making them, will be a fixed window with the awning on the bottom. And, just want to make sure I'm, I guess, reading you guys right as far as what our next step might be as far as a proposal. I'm assuming that if he did a double hung again with a 2x2 pattern on the upper sash and the lower sash, that would be approved. But I would also, not having him here, I'm not sure if he'd want to keep the fixed casement on the top with the awning on the bottom and a vent, and then the windows that vented would have a vent on the bottom and then 2x2 pattern on the upper fixed window and a 2x2 pattern on the lower awning window. And then the larger fixed windows would just have a 2x4 pattern, mutton pattern in them. I was wondering if that was an acceptable, I guess, alternative, because I'm sure he's going to be wanting options.
So are you saying, basically if you look at one of these, the windows on the second floor here, it would look like that, but the bottom 4 panes would actually form a hopper casement or awning casement?
Yeah, so you would have a mullion if you look at the upper windows that were done in 2017. You'd have a mullion that would be similar to that, but it would be in the center instead of being offset towards the bottom. And then the upper window would have a 2x2 pattern, and the lower window would have a 2x2 pattern as far as the mutton. And then the adjacent window that's next to it, next to one of that's just a large fixed window, that would actually have a 2x4 mutton pattern in it only and be one large window.
With no heavier division in the middle?
Well, I guess that would be one option, and then we could have a third option of putting a heavier division in the middle. We do have one of our muttons has got about a 2-inch wide profile. It could go in the center. It's actually specifically designed to kind of simulate a double hung, is why it's even around. So we could have just trying to see what options I'm going to have when he comes back with questions.
So typically the operation of the window is not usually in question. You can have a fixed window, you can have a double hung, you can have a hopper. You could hopper the entire thing, you could awning the entire thing. That's not typically the issue. The issue is the mullions and the thickness of them. The proportions and the ratios, all of that is what we're really focused on.
Okay. So the one thing is if he did have with the hopper on the bottom and the fixed window on the top, the horizontal really wouldn't be a mutton, it would be a mullion. That really couldn't be, that's gonna come out to be about 5 inches, and that couldn't really be changed just because it's the frame of the window. So I guess I'm just trying to get some of the questions out of the way for, what options we do have.
I think you could present that, and the board would determine whether or not they feel comfortable with that. It would depend on what your rendering or what your drawing shows, and how that would visually impact the building.
Okay. I guess that's all the questions I have.
So Jason, was that, just to clarify, was that a consent to table?
Yes. Yep.
I have a motion.
I'll move to table.
Give a second.
I'll second.
Again, please call the roll.
Sure. Mr. Frondorf,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry?
Yeah.
And Mr. Talley.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion to table passes. Yeah, Jason, I guess if you have any other questions as you kind of make those revisions, just feel free to give the office here a call, and we can help you get ready for next round.
Okay, sounds good.
Right.
Thanks
All right, thank
for your
you.
time, guys. All right.
All right, next up, we have
Are we
proposal
gonna
first.
bring Nia back into the room?
I thought I just
Oh,
did.
never mind.
Yeah, are you there? Okay,
Oh.
yeah.
Great.
I wouldn't forget her. So next up, we have case number OC 23-23, 4224 Bridge Avenue, proposal for solar panel installations. We have Dave Hunter here. So Dave, I've got your presentation if you want to walk us through it, and let me know when you want me to change slides.
Okay. Yes, I'm Dave Hunter. I'm with Yellow Light Solar, and we're proposing to install a 9.6 kilowatt solar system on the southwest is the best description of this direction of the roof. And there'll be 24 solar modules. There'll be black on black frame and glass with black racking, and will be onto a charcoal gray roof that is existing. The roof does have black shingles in it, so I believe this will blend in rather than contrast. The system will produce about 70% of the homeowner's electricity. We've designed the conduit to run on the other side of the dormer so that it would be hidden from the street, and we put as minimal equipment on the side of the house as possible. The two pieces that are out there are mandatory by utility and first responders, and that's rapid shutdown and a disconnect switch. And I think that's pretty much it. And we pushed the panels to the back as far as we could. To visible.
Do you have a dimension of that?
The roof is 14 by 56, and on that side of the roof is 56, and the about 45 feet.
Dave, I have a question for you guys from a company standpoint, because this is the second proposal we've seen in the last couple months. Do you guys take deposits from homeowners prior to reaching this point of the design?
It's case by case. And I think he has put a deposit down on this, 10%.
Our challenge on this board is that the guidelines for solar panels in the historic district are pretty clear cut in that you should not be able to see the solar panels from the public right of way. We had a challenge with the property just behind this one on Whitman Avenue that we voted to deny because there wasn't a way to configure them that was not visible. So I guess moving forward, our preference would be to, especially if there are deposits involved, like understanding what the criteria is in this historic district. Because then things come to this board and then we have to be the bad guys, denying a really energy efficient proposal, and that puts us in a tough spot. And I don't appreciate. It's one of those where it's just a hard thing to continuously deal with, because I think this is the third that we've seen from your company in recent time. So that said, like, do you have, this is the only configuration that will work on this particular property? Is that what you're saying?
With the other side of the roof being north facing, we put together a shade analysis for the part that where the conduit is showing going across, and we came up with about 2 kilowatts of solar for the modules to go over there. I mean, which is almost a tenth of what the full system would do.
So there's no configuration, for example, that would keep the panels, like looking at this roof plan, there's this what is it, east-facing gable,
right?
That would be, for example, behind, like in physical space behind that gable line.
Yeah, like I said, we did look at that as somewhat of an option, and I mean, the production over there, just by it facing a little north, just really hinders production a lot, to the point where I don't think it would be feasible to try to, give the customer that product. That just, it doesn't seem to be a wise choice.
And are you familiar with the Secretary of Interior standards for solar panels in the historic district?
For Cleveland? Or
for any federal historic district, which this property is a part of?
Federal? No, I'm not.
It is, I can't, I don't have the exact verbiage in front of me if anyone does, but the criteria that we are tasked with is that it should not be visible from the public right of way. Is that correct? Dan, do you have?
I believe it's minimally visible.
Minimally?
Minimally visible from the public right of way. I guess I'll hop in and so you're saying the dimension off the front of the building. I think, first of all, some of your points, you've already been thinking about it and you're trying to pull everything away from the front of the building, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that everything is to the back, and I think based on the dimensions you're giving, you're saying this is 45 feet long and the building is 56 feet, which would put you about 11 feet back from the face of the building.
Correct.
And then how much would it be not worth their time if you were to remove the front 2 panels and give it, I don't know, almost to 15 feet? Would you still gain as much? You wouldn't gain as much energy, but would it still be a profit in the long run for them?
That would put them at 22 modules instead of 24. And I believe that they will get the same proportion of bang for the buck because, of course, their initial investment will go down.
Okay.
So by removing those 2 panels, I think the Woodcocks would definitely go along with that.
If you go back to the,
Go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say, if you go back to the roof plan, Dan, I guess I just have a question. So there's a missing tooth between the purple panels and the orange panels. Is that just the way? I mean, is there truly an obstruction on the roof in that location, which is why there's a missing sort of panel there, or?
I know the obstructions up front, but let me take a look because he had the roof replaced. Let me see if I can. I got
I
both.
guess,
of-
well, I
got-
guess, yeah, I mean, I guess what, to go along with, I think, what Mike was saying is there an opportunity to, configure the panels so that they are as far back as possible? And if that means reducing the number, or, if you're able to, add a panel in the missing tooth and maybe remove the front 3 panels where you're only, losing 2, is that, how would that impact things? I think it's still a consideration of the balance of the board, whether or not, it would be acceptable based on the secretary standards. But it would be helpful to understand kind of the other opportunities here.
Well, I'm looking at the site eval photo that I took, and I don't think that obstruction is at the rear. So we could take the 2 modules off completely and then place the one that's underneath in the missing tooth. And then that would free up another 40 inches as well.
I just wanted to add in, I'm kind of driving down the street on Google Maps, and just looking at it from there, the obstructions are trees, and then if I come to the house just to the left, there's a skylight on the roof. That's skylight or solar panel. Is, in my opinion, is go either way, and I fully understand, um, or at least I understand the requirements for solar panels. I just think that this house is in such a tight lot. The angles of which you kind of approach this house and have that other house peeking out to the left in front of it, or to the southwest in front of it, that there's kind of minimal view corridors, I guess, to this house and its roof. You see it walking, but I think in this situation it's less intrusive compared to some other examples we've seen where there's a lot more space, and there's a lot more where we can see a lot more roof. I like the solution of maybe moving one of those panels and toothing it in, and um, uh, moving one of those panels and toothing it in, and then taking off the one that pushes it further back. But I mean, to be honest, I don't have too much of an issue with even the layout as it is. And I what was I going to say? And then I don't know if you claim any space, or if this is all to scale and everything. And I don't know if you claim any additional space or have any additional way to fit it that, like, you get, you know, any more, or if you turned it, probably not. I was to say, if you turned it long ways and you put it three deep, on that side of the roof, starting from the back, that probably loses space. I don't know if that's even an option, but because of these, like, trees in front of this building, and um, because of the limited views towards that portion of the roof, I am less inclined to take issue with this. I mean, it looks like you get a good full exposure, driving or walking, of that southeast, like between that gable portion where the panels aren't right now, or you're not showing the panels, just above that porch. Looks like you get a good full view of that. But the other side is fairly well hidden from the street, at least from driving down the street. So, um, as I approach, yeah, as I approach the house, then on foot, right in front, that's when I start to have a little bit of a view of that. And it's, as long as it's, blending well for me, it could go. I have less of a problem with it.
Yeah, when I visited the property to do the site evaluation, and it was in wintertime when there was no leaves on the trees, I had a hard time trying to get a view of the roof and try to, make sure that I was able to put together a design. I even had a hard time when there wasn't no trees on the, wasn't no leaves on the trees. So definitely, I do respect the fact that it is obscured. I don't even know if people driving by would catch a glimpse of them or even know that there were solar panels on them unless they were actually kind of looking for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think driving by, I would see the on that blue house. I think I would see that like skylight just having to look up, but I probably stopped looking as soon as the tree got in the way. But um, I mean, I can't see how it appears. I just have less of an issue with it here. And I don't know how much of the rest of the house has been preserved or, made historic or been kept in kind with any colors to begin with. So, um, yeah, that's just my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you.
We, as a group, as a committee, we've got to decide how we're going to handle these solar panels, and we're either going to follow the Secretary of Interior standards or not. We're charged with following them. There may be very good, solid policy reasons for changing those, but that's not our job, and that's not before us. I don't think we can make this decision based on the Google Street View image. I think if you walk down the sidewalk and looked up, you'd see them. And so I'm not persuaded that that tree in the image that's on our screen answers the question. Would you be willing to meet us halfway, Dave, and go with the orange panels and omit the purple panels?
So you're saying cut the system in half?
Yes.
I could propose to Phil. I would put his system at about a little less than 5 kilowatts, and
that is
probably
of other applicants to keep the panels to the rear half of the roof line. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't make the same request here.
could I appeal to 14 panels maybe and reduce it by 10? And we
So,
fill in that missing tooth there.
you'd have a total of, let's see, 5, you'd have 12. You filled in the missing tooth with the one orange one there.
Right where the one orange one is now, there'll be an orange one above that, and then the missing tooth will be filled.
I think for me personally, if we can get behind the gable of that cross, if we can get behind the ridge of that cross gable, which I think gives you a little bit more than half, the rear half, would be my first would be my preference. In terms of balance, for me personally.
That will give us
What, 16?
is it 16,
18, I think.
18 panels? I
Mhm.
think that would definitely be something that the Woodcocks would probably, given everything that you guys are saying, something that they would be willing to definitely continue the project with.
So would that be an agreeable middle ground for you?
I can agree with that.
Also, I think I just would request to yellow light that when you guys are dealing with properties in the historic district, that these types of issues are communicated up front with your clients and taken into consideration from the get-go of the design process, so that we all have a smoother it's hard because we have these rules that the historic district needs to follow. We of course understand how solar panels work, the benefit of solar panels, we do not want to be anti-energy saving in any way, but we're
Right.
still having to uphold these criteria. So if you guys could be, you know, just making sure that the due diligence is done on the front end, we would really appreciate it, because it would help these discussions go more smoothly, and we can hopefully, you know, have happier clients and happier neighbors with this process.
We were upfront, you know, and let him know that we did have to go before the board, and the, you know, the size system may be a little aggressive for this at this time for the historical society to, or board to actually see it to be feasible.
Okay.
And just for, I mean, we get so many customers that come in, and just because of the way their houses are and everything, we get more and more requests to add solar to their homes, and we're giving them fair warning that, you know, some of these things just will not pass, and especially when they got a south and north roof, and the south facing is towards the street. Basically tell them that it's really not going to happen, and we even have them ask us to move forward with presenting anyway, because we deal with a lot of municipalities, and like Gate Mills is one, and I mean they really have a strict policy about front roofs being used, and then they go back as far as seeing if you can see it from the neighbor's house and things like that. So definitely we understand, but you know, just coming from the sheer demand from it, you know, electric jump in June here, and we're expecting a flood of applications to come in. Electric vehicles are coming up a lot more. So
yeah, and you're always welcome to shoot your shot, as I say, but I just want to make sure that you guys are communicating, just so that we don't want anyone to be surprised. And you're getting you're getting the reaction of some negative. We've been receiving heat for not, you know, I think on the heels of a project that was a little more contentious, but
Are you willing to table this project to go back to your client and then come back to us with what's agreeable to them?
And yes, and just to be clear, we're looking at removing the ones right at the peak of the dormer forward, and then keeping the remaining 18 back along with the other equipment as designed. Is that kind of, I'm not saying that's what you need to tell me yes or no, but that's probably what we would be pitching to the client, and then coming back to you guys with next month.
I think that's the extreme end of the limit. I think personally, I think there's a middle ground between somewhere before, in front of the dormer, and it sounded like Phil was kind of on board with where you are now. So I think there's some wiggle room here. Maybe you don't get 100% of the board on board, but I think you do have some wiggle room between where you are now and the ridge of the dormer.
Agreed. I think there's maybe one to two different options, maybe a third, where you see how many you can cram back there. And I, again, don't have an issue with it moving past the dormer.
And I think this is more to the board. I'd be cautious to set some kind of precedent of going halfway, just because I don't think that's going to fit every building. I think given the dimensions between this building and the one next door, they could probably move forward of that dormer line and still be minimally visible.
Michael, it's good caution. I agree. All right.
and I appreciate that. I will motion to table.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Call roll.
All right, Mr. Frondorf,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Ms. Marinucci,
Yes.
Mr. Sambury,
Yeah.
and Mr. Talley.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Chair, the motion to table passes. Dave, I think you got it's kind of clear marching orders to go back to the owner, and yeah, we'll be in coordination to get you on the next agenda when you're ready.
Sounds good. I appreciate you guys and young ladies for your time today, and see you next month.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Last agenda item is a concept for comments. We have Ms. Marinucci presenting the 1852 Fulton Road, case OC 23-20. It's a concept for review of an addition to an existing home. So, Antonia, take it away.
This is 1852 Fulton. Can you go to the next slide? I'm looking at the property history. It's seen. The main thing of note here is the rear of the property between 1896 and 1912. There was a second home built kind of on that rear portion of the lot. Otherwise, the house sort of seems to be substantially similar to its original, 19th century footprint. Next slide. Okay, and then today, interestingly, it has been kind of the property line has evolved quite a bit and seems to have like gobbled up and or been divided up to separate the existing rear house from the front house with a shared driveway in the middle. Currently owned, my client Kim Heinen owns both of those properties. So it's just a very irregular lot now in its current form. So I don't even know what you call this, but this is what it is. The portion that we are focusing on is creating an addition at the rear of that front house, going a second floor addition over an existing first floor like mudroom space, and then an attached 1-car garage to service that front house. I think I'm gonna go a little, I put in here potential variance in that the garage is, I don't know if it's technically in the rear half of the lot, but I'm also a little bit baffled by where the rear half of the lot would be considered on this property. So I put that in there just anticipating that we will probably be having some kind of variance involving the rear half and or rear setback, depending on interpretation. I'm dimensioned to that existing structure. There's like a 10-foot space between the back house and where the garage would sit, kind of as an effective rear setback for this purpose, and for code separation from an existing main dwelling unit. Next slide. This is the existing property, really, really well preserved, well-maintained property. You can see there's a shared driveway, so both properties currently use that driveway for parking. And this is what the view looks like from Fulton currently. Next slide. And then looking in from at that south facade, inborn of the property, again, really well preserved, really well detailed. And then you can see in the right-hand photo where the existing kind of parking comes together, as well as the little 1-story mudroom space that we're proposing to go add on to above. And then where that black car is effectively where that 1-car garage attachment would sit in space. Next slide. Looking more at the north facade, where you can see the house is tight to the property line at the north, kind of capturing the pieces of the west facade. Again, that door that you see in the middle photo is where that would become the door between the attached garage and the house. And then that lower gable portion would be what we would build upon. Next slide. existing roof plan and the proposed roof plan, flipping the orientation. So now the front is plan top. And next slide. Here's the floor plan. The mudroom, laundry room of the first floor would stay the same. First floor attached garage. And then the second floor plan would create a little ensuite office space, laundry space, and closet, walk-in closet. That's the program of the top floor. And then the rear, from a roof line and massing perspective, we're trying to stay within narrower than the existing home to remain deferential to the larger double height portion of the house. Next slide. And then in the existing rear and side elevation, as well as the proposed rear and side elevation, the idea is to reuse the upper, like 4-pane window, and repeat that motif in the new addition at the rear of the house. We're keeping the roof line lower than the existing roof line to remain deferential and within scale of the step back. And then the roof line again steps back over the garage to try to kind of keep the hierarchy. And we're also, to alleviate that does create a clipped head height in the office closet space. So we were playing around with putting in a little dormer with a window into that office space to kind of balance out that head height and add light to that portion of the room. Next slide, or is that my last one?
I think that's it.
Oh, that's my last one. Okay, so that's where we're at from a conceptual standpoint. Again, effectively, except for that rear elevation, the rest of the historic home is remaining intact with this proposal. It's really mostly just additive to this kind of mudroom portion of the house. Comments?
They're breathless. They're speechless.
I think conceptually, I think from my perspective, the massing of both the addition on top of the single-story piece and the garage fit well and are deferential to the main body of the house. The question that I have is, if you scroll up to the second page of existing photos. Yeah, this one. With sort of the white Volvo sitting there, and then seeing where the black car is sort of parked behind the house where the garage is going to go. I mean, is there enough room to park a car where the white car is and allow for access into that new garage? I guess that's my only just question. It seems a bit tight, but that's also could just be where the photo's taken from.
Dan, can you go to the site plan photo?
Is it up at the beginning? There we go.
Yeah. And then I know it's a little, at least it's hard to see the dimensions on screen for me, but I'll read them. It is, oh my gosh, hold on, I have too many windows open. All right, we got from the garage, the face of that garage. Yeah, thank you, Dan. We have 13 feet 4 inches from the garage door to the property line, which again straddles that driveway, the shared driveway. Currently, as it is one owner, I think that the plan from her mind is that she currently actually lives in the back house and rents the front house, and she wants to flip where she's living longer term in that front house and rents the back house. So her intention is to retain control of the property, and I don't know if parking for her tenant space is then foregone. But she does have the control or capacity, I think, if there were an easement involved or some sort of, requirement for, I think right now, I think right now the reason that the driveway is split is so that you don't cut off access to Fulton to the back unit from a code, from a zoning standpoint or whatever, when planning a standpoint. But the priority for her is to create the attached garage for her longevity of the full property. So I don't know if I don't think answer your question. If that would be feasible for 2 cars to park back there, that's how she's planning to use it.
Yeah, I mean, I understand sort of the intent and the desire to have a garage associated with this, at least the front part of the front house. I just question, if there is another car parked there, and it being 2 separate properties, if there's going to be a challenge there. I guess as a follow-up question, not that this really has an impact one way or another necessarily, but I mean, seeing as she owns both properties, is she at all considering reconsolidating it to be one property again, seeing as it was originally one
I don't
single
know.
property?
I could ask her, and I would also be curious if that would alleviate any zoning concerns. I don't know that there would be. I mean, I feel like we get zoning variances for like all sorts of stuff. So I'm not as worried about that not being agreeable from a zoning standpoint, but if it would help, I don't know. I can ask her. I think technically you could also, we have 10 feet of space between the porch of that main dwelling unit and the garage. Like you could technically pull a very tight surface space next to the garage if you wanted to.
Right.
Again, it would be tight, but
What's wrong?
I'll ask her.
Yeah. Anyway, those are my just thoughts and questions.
I'm sending you errors.
I don't really have any
They're okay?
sticking points or anything. I think this is a great design.
She's in a meeting. Like I said.
I was gonna say, could you go to the rear elevation? I can't remember what was going on the 3rd floor, but yeah, I didn't mind the window, the smaller window. It seems like maybe you could have it back there, but it's probably good and it might even make it too busy. So I guess I'm in more agreement with Mike's. I think it's really good design. It came together well. I don't know, maybe a window on the 2nd floor. I don't know. It would be a new opening, and that's really up to you. But it just could be nice to have a view or something.
The
Back
third
there.
window, the double hung,
Yeah,
maybe
that's
2. The one above it, those are the bedroom in the back is fully vaulted. So those are all both within the existing bedroom space.
okay.
I think it did feel a little we originally drew it with that little window at the top staying. It felt tight to the
Got it.
addition, and because they have the skylights, it was almost like
Yeah,
it
we're
just felt a
doing too
little odd,
much.
right? Just to add in some extra light when it gets a ton of light. It's a really, they have skylights on the other side too, so it's really pretty. But yeah, it just felt like too much.
Okay. Yeah, I totally buy that. I think it is pretty nice. Yeah, that's all I got.
Thanks.
I guess while we're looking at this elevation again, I mean, is there? I'm not saying that this is a requirement by any means, but the double hung window that's below the small window on the existing, is there any opportunity to? I mean, if you're reusing the smaller window, is there an opportunity somewhere within the new to be able to utilize that window as well? Just a thought. Not that there's any reason for it or anything like that, but
Yeah, I think we looked at it. There's a couple thoughts of it's like putting it at where the dormer is, but it's much taller than the window in the second floor of the side elevation, the one that's like between the skylights. It's actually much, it's got it's a taller window. So I think that that would look a little funky because then we're messing with the proportions from the first floor to the second floor, which the first floor has the taller windows. And then the other thought is like putting it, when you look at the rear elevations, the window facing the rear of the house, looking, you can't see it when the garage is built out. It's remaining. You just can't see it in the straight elevation view, is going above that one. So it would kind of be like in front of that. I could try that. I'm not sure that it needs it, but I'm willing to draw it and see if it looks good. And
Yeah, it's just a thought. I mean, there's something nice about like for me the proportions of that existing window, and you know, if there was an opportunity to retain or reuse it somewhere else. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah, the rear it does have a nice balance up there as it is. I would agree.
What about just to the right on the second floor? I mean, in that space, above that porch. Yeah. I mean, I know you already said about windows and everything being way too open. Um, I wonder if it's just nice to have a look out and see who's pulling in and all that other stuff. But yeah.
I can explore and see what we think. It is hard to it's hard to visualize that the two windows, the side window and that back window, are different sizes. So when you push them closer together from the
Yeah.
interior, there it's because the ceiling ends up getting a little clipped at the
Makes sense. That totally makes sense. I'm seeing it.
yeah, it's just like
It's like coming down really close to the header.
exactly. And then I start to get a little
Yeah.
it's not enough breathing room, and then it feels like a mistake.
Yeah, I guess sorry to keep adding on to this, but yeah, I guess, you know, I don't want to replace existing windows or reconfigure existing windows if it's avoidable, but I mean, you know, it could be, I mean, it appears that the taller window on the first floor next to the door might be similar in size to the upper window. So I don't know if like removing and moving the smaller window on the bump out, you know, with the larger second floor window, you know, just creating a different balance of that now new two-story form makes any sense. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm also not one necessarily for, you know, recreating a, you know, or changing the historic context of a building when it's not, you know, 100% warranted. But anyway.
Yeah. I'll play with it. I'm happy to play with it and see if it yields anything balanced and interesting. We are utilizing like where the existing door or the window is, that's the header of the door to the addition. So we're utilizing that kind of centered opening. If that helps with the proportion or like visualizing the addition.
Cool.
Okay. Otherwise I could plan. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
No, I was asking if there's any windows on was it the north elevation of this addition?
It's not proposed that way. If you go to the photos of the north side, we are tight to the existing property line. I think we have about that 3-foot number that allows us to put a window by fire code if we wanted one. The knee wall, you know, where the end of that back gable in the floor plate is only about 4 feet. So if we put a window in, unless I dormer it again, we're kind of on the floor. I didn't think it was super additive to the proposal, nor is it very visible. So to me, that was not the place to spend money on framing and windows, where I prefer to do it towards that garage face or the driveway side. So it was actually engaging with the property more.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, otherwise, detailing wise, the intention is to keep with the spirit of this, you know, the architecture here. It's just really well detailed. Like the corner boards are chamfered. It's very, very well preserved or restored. So we really want to keep with that without none of the gingerbreading to, again, remain deferential, but, you know, keeping the material and detailing of those kind of simple moments when we get to that point.
Anyone have anything else to add, or?
And I think if there's nothing else, that concludes our meeting.
All right.
Dan, anything else?
I've got nothing on my end, so thank you all, and I guess we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.